Okay, this afternoon we're going to talk about shellac, and specifically French polish, which uses shellac as the medium. French polish is a technique. So let's talk about the material, the shellac, to begin with. First, there's a common misconception out there that shellac is the fecal matter of a bug. It's not the fecal matter of the bug, it's the nesting matter. It's more analogous really to a spider web or a silk cocoon. It's stuff that the bug exudes around a branch of a tree to create its nest that it and all of its offspring nest in. It grows in a specific, there's a specific kind of a tree that the bug likes to use, and that tree is planted and the shellac is harvested all in the far southeast. India, Malaysia, that part of the world. Shellac comes in a bunch of different grades, from very, very coarse, very unrefined to very refined. And to start with, I don't think that a person who wants to be accustomed, who wants to get friendly with the material, should work with the very unrefined stuff. The unrefined stuff is buttonlac or seedlac. Those are two forms of highly or very unrefined shellac that it takes a lot of effort to make truly useful for fine products. It's great for some things, but not for fine furniture work. And then beyond that, there are probably 7 or 8 different grades of what's called orange shellac. There's garnet shellac, and then there's the more or less clear, the platinum and the super blonde. Shellac is normally rather amber in color. And even what they call platinum still has just the slightest tinge of amber to it. But this is really what makes the material nice for most woodworking. Is that it imparts a nice golden glow to the wood. When you're dealing with a light-colored wood and you don't want any addition of color whatsoever, about the clearest shellac you're going to buy is in a can. A Zinsser's Clear is truly clear. All the other, normally you don't want to buy shellac in a can. Shellac has a shelf life. And it used to be that they printed the date of its manufacture on the bottom of the can. And you could determine from that whether you were buying a fresh can or not, but they don't do that anymore. There was enough of a protest about it that they, on Zinsser's website, you could go and look up the serial number of the can, and they'll tell you what date it was. But you can't very well do that when you're standing in the store. Normally, serious users of shellac make their own, starting with flakes. So I brought some medium orange flakes that I'll just pass around. You can look at what it looks like in the shellac, the flakes. As long as you don't keep them in a very moist or a very hot environment, the flakes have no shelf life. They last forever. So basically, when you're using shellac, you mix some up just before you're ready to use it. When you've mixed it up, Depending on conditions, it might have a shelf life of 3 months, but I wouldn't push it. And the way you tell is to take what you've got and you dip a stick down into it. Just let the stick drip off and set it aside for about 45 minutes, and then dip the stick back in it again. Let it dry. It should, by an hour after the second time, it should be really hard. It should be hard to your fingernail. If it's still soft at all, or if it takes a fingerprint, it's no longer any good. Shellac also comes in two forms. The various grades come in two forms. There's shellac with the wax still in it, and then the de-waxed shellac. Most of you have probably heard about the de-waxed shellac. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. If you're using shellac as a sealer underneath some other kind of a finish, you definitely always want to use de-waxed shellac. The wax that they take out of shellac, if it's still in the shellac, it will create a resist, and the subsequent coats of some other kind of finish. Now, shellac will always stick to itself, but if you're putting like lacquer or polyurethane or something over a shellac sealer, the wax will get in the way of it sticking, adhesion. So you use de-waxed shellac. Yeah?
Would the flakes typically be waxed?
Both.
Okay.
You get both. What you're holding there is waxed shellac, just for your information. You can't tell just by looking at it.
Did you run this through a coffee grinder or something?
No, that's pretty much how I get it. I mean, sometimes the flakes get bigger and lumped together, but I've seen people run them through a blender to create a powder, just so that it will dissolve quicker in alcohol. The disadvantage of de-waxed shellac is that in the French polish method, you need to use linseed oil as a lubricant. We'll get to that. With waxed shellac that still has the wax in it, the wax that's in the shellac, naturally in the shellac, acts as a lubricant in the process, and you don't need to add linseed oil in the process. Another disadvantage of waxed shellac is that it's a little bit more likely to watermark. If you leave a drink on it, no shellac will watermark with just if it gets water on it. But if you sit a glass down and it sweats and sits there for 20 minutes or more, it's likely to watermark. It's more likely to watermark if it's waxed shellac than if it's de-waxed shellac. So there's advantages, disadvantages to either one. Shellac is a great sealer. It will seal anything in the wood. You can put it over, the silicone polishes that cause finish to fisheye. Shellac will seal those in, so you can use it as a sealer over the silicone polishes. It'll seal in the resin that comes out of pine knots that tries to work its way through finishes. We've all seen that. It's a great sealer. It's a marvelous material. It's non-poisonous. You mix it with you mix it with alcohol. They used to mix it with methanol, which they've discovered is hazardous to your health. So we no longer use methanol on any regular basis. Now they mix it with ethanol, which is denatured. Ethanol is just corn liquor. In fact, a lot of people I know use Everclear out from the liquor store to mix their shellac with. You want to make sure that you're using a high-grade high-grade brand of alcohol, because a lot of alcohols that you buy out there still have a lot of water in them, and that's not good for shellac. Really, ethanol is fine. Methanol makes nice shellac, but it's like I say, it's hazardous. Even it can go through your skin. and make you sick. Ethanol is fine. The best shellac, the best alcohol to use in shellac is industrial grade isopropyl alcohol. But now don't use the rubbing alcohol that you can buy at the drugstore because it's got way too much water in it.
What about denatured alcohol?
Denatured alcohol is just ethanol with a little bit of methanol added to it to make it poisonous so that people won't drink it. But it's just, denatured alcohol is just ethanol. And I think that's part of the reason that a lot of people use Everclear, grain alcohol from the liquor store instead of the denatured. They don't like the methanol, even a little bit of methanol that's in denatured alcohol. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, you mix it, and you mix it. And it's generally mixed in what's called a cut. That is, how much shellac per how much alcohol. When you buy it from Zinsser, and Zinsser is a high quality product if you can be assured of the age of what's in the can. When you buy it from Zinsser, it comes in a 3-pound cut. And what that means is 3 pounds of shellac has been dissolved in a gallon of alcohol. I like to use a 1.5-pound cut. So what I do is mix 1.5 pounds, or the equivalent of 1.5 pounds of shellac flakes to a gallon of alcohol. When you do that, it looks to be almost as thin as water, but not to worry, there's lots of resin in there. A shellac finish tends to be very thin, but one of the great things about it, especially if you use the French polish method, is that even though it's very thin, it imparts a wonderful glow to the wood, but instead of looking like a high plastic film on top of the wood, it just looks like you've got nice polished wood rather than a plastic film on top. So, the French polish method is a way of putting on shellac that develops that high polish without brush marks and is virtually dry to the touch right after being put on. So dust is not an issue either with French polish. The French polish starts out with the alcohol that you've mixed up. I generally keep it in a bottle. I had the opportunity to go to France on a study trip, and we went to lots of nice shops there in France where they were practicing the old techniques. And I noticed that all of the French craftsmen kept all their finishes and solvents and everything in old wine bottles. And so I came back. This is a little bit different. This is a beer bottle, and I use a Jack Daniels bottle for some of them too. But that's my shellac mixed up. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm using de-waxed shellac so that I can show you the use of linseed oil in the process. If I were using waxed shellac, we could just eliminate the linseed oil. French polish is applied with a pad. Here's a good one. This is a good one. I'll send this around. This pad is a touch on the soft side. I'm going to pass this around while I'm talking. It's got a little bit of shellac in it, so but your fingers might get a touch sticky. And if you feel that, like I say, that pad is a touch on the soft side. The pad wants to be fairly firm. I make the pad out of this this 90-pound cheesecloth. you don't want to use the cheesecloth that you get at the regular store. Couple of people offer this 90-pound cheesecloth. I forget who the woodworking finishing suppliers are, but you can find it in the catalogs. I'll pass this around too. This is just the raw material to make a pad out of. Those of you who have read about French polish probably read that they put wool in the middle of the pad. I think a lot of what's been written about French polishing is unnecessary voodoo that's been put in there to keep you from trying it, to make it seem like something that only the initiated priesthood is capable of doing. And one of those things is the wool in the middle of the pad. It's just not necessary. A properly made pad of the proper cheesecloth. They also say use linen. I've tried linen. Linen is not nearly it doesn't last nearly as long as this 90-pound cheesecloth does. So I use this cheesecloth. But you notice that the pad is put together with a rubber band, and you just fold it over until you've got a fairly tight fold. And then bunch it up. When you bunch it up, you want to make sure that there are no wrinkles, either on the surface or down underneath, to create hard spots. So as you fold it up, you want to fold it up nice and. Let me have that back for a minute, and I'll illustrate this. Thank you. This is more than it takes to make a pad, but I'll just illustrate making a pad for a minute. You make sure that there aren't any wrinkles in the middle where you're going to end up with your Now, a pad might end up being anywhere from the size of a cherry to the size of a tennis ball, depending on what you're working on. But did you see how I folded it over, but I made sure that there weren't any wrinkles in there until I got down to this place where I could start to ball it up. So here, let me...
Do you find if the shellac has an effect on the rubber, and those rubber bands lose their elasticity?
They do, that's right. So I'm bad with rubber bands. I mean, it doesn't happen in the first hour of use.
No.
But yeah, with time, the alcohol.
If you put them away, it's good.
It's not likely to last. In fact, we'll see how long that will last, because it's been there for a while. Okay. Now, one of the virtues of a good French polish finish is that you can fill the grain of open poured woods real nicely with the French polish method and not have to use grain filler. I hate to use grain filler. I don't know how you feel about this stuff, but I hate messing with it. Well, if we do this properly, we'll end up with the grain nicely filled, and then we'll polish on top of that. So that process involves also some pumice. Okay? Now you might have read that pumice is involved in all of French polish method. It's not. I mean, it's only involved in the grain filling part of the process. So if you're dealing with close poured woods like cherry or maple, there's no reason to use pumice at all. And once we've done the initial pumice coat, will be done with the pumice, and we'll put it aside and just continue the French polish from there.
Is there a grit to the pumice, a certain grit, or is it pumice is pumice?
It's volcanic.
It's, yeah, for all intents and purposes, if you buy pumice from a paint store, it's going to come in the one grit that you can get it in. There's pumice and then there's rotten stone. Rotten stone is a lot finer than pumice. I like pumice because it has enough of an abrasive nature to it that as you're polishing with it abrades the wood just a little bit and creates a wood slurry. That along the wood slurry, along with the pumice, the shellac, and the linseed oil, create a slurry that gets pressed down into the pores. And part of that slurry is wood because of the abrasive nature of the pumice. Now, pumice, when you get it, is white in color. So I add just a little bit of alcohol-soluble brown aniline powder, alcohol-soluble dye powder to the pumice, so that the what's filling the pores is not white. And if you think about it, if many of you have spent much time looking at antique furniture, you've seen antique furniture where the pores that have little white specks all in it. And that comes from the French polishing method used without putting any dye in the pumice. Okay, so let's see, let's get these back.
What kind of ratio are you adding to dye?
Oh, I don't know, a pinch.
Just enough to add a little color?
Just enough.
Just
So it's right color?
Until it's the right color. I wish I could be more specific about that. I just, if I had to say, I'd say that there's 1 part of dye for 20 parts of pumice. It doesn't take a lot. Okay, for this process, because it's abrasive, I use a separate pad. Now, the pad wants to be pretty firm. So this process involves some shellac,
The 1.5 pound.
1.5 pound cut. I'm gonna, this is just alcohol. I'm gonna put just a little alcohol on the pad to moisten it just a touch. The linseed oil, mostly for lubrication of the process. Just a little smear on the pad. That's probably too much. Okay, and then I've got my pumice in a salt shaker, and I'm just going to shake on about this much. You might want to. I don't think the camera will reveal how much that is, so anybody who's really interested might want to come up and see how much I've put down. Does that? Yeah, that shows it more or less. Okay, now I've softened this pad, just moistened this pad, just moistened. If I squeeze this pad, I don't want to see any liquid rise up out of it. It doesn't want to be softened by any means. Now I'm going to add some shellac, just a couple of dashes, and I'm going to start rubbing that pumice in with circular motion of the pad. Okay? We don't need extra linseed oil with each new application. I'm going to put down some more pumice. Another dash of shellac. And keep rubbing the pumice into the grain. And using the abrasive action of the pumice to abrade off little wood fibers. I can go back over the area I've already been.
How do you polish carving?
Pardon?
How do you polish surfaces that aren't flat, like carving, walk feet?
That, I don't do the pumice part of carving. We'll get to that. We'll get to just the polishing part. Right now we're grain filling. We're not really polishing. I don't do the grain filling part on carvings. Carving tend to work out just without needing to have the grain filled.
Which pressure do you put on that?
Well, you're not exactly white knuckling it, but there is a fair bit of pressure. And one thing about it is that you keep going, once it starts to drag, those who are new to the process tend to, when they start to feel it drag, they stop. But the thing about shellac is that once it starts to drag and you build up a little friction, that's when it starts to skate. That's not so much of a deal when you're doing the grain filling part.
Can that be done mechanically?
Well, somebody will have to experiment with that. I've never tried it. You're thinking of a dual action sander or a random orbital sander with a pad on the bottom. It's an interesting thought. Somehow or another, it seems spiritually contrary to the whole nature of French polishing. But if you want to give it a try, go ahead. And just be on the lookout for lightning.
12-inch auto polishing.
Yeah.
More power.
Let us know, Phil.
Well, we're getting older, we don't have much time left, we got to
Every now and then I'll add just a little alcohol to keep everything at the right level of moisture. I'm going to add a little more
If it was Jack Daniels.
linseed oil to the pad. Yes.
Can you repeat the question, please?
It said,
When he asked, when you're starting off with a new pad, do you need to load it up a little bit more? Yes, you do. You need to load it up a little bit more. But you never want it to be sopping wet. Now, this is a pretty open poured piece of mahogany. I'm only going to do this process once. So when we start polishing, we'll still see some signs of the pores, but you can, if you completely want to fill the pores, you can do this, wait about 30 minutes, scuff sand it real lightly with just 320 or 400 grit paper, and then do this again to completely fill the pores. So now I'm going to pass this around. For everybody to look at what that one application looks like. And notice you'll see swirl marks in there from that circular motion. Don't worry about that. French polish is easy to repair. It's very easy to repair. But it's likely that somebody's going to set down a wine glass and forget about it, or set an extra hot dish down on the table and mar the French polish. So, like I say, my customers who insist on a French polish on their dining table have got to understand that I'll be glad to come back and do the repairs, but it won't be done under warranty. It will be done with a charge. Otherwise, everything I do, I prefer to put French polish on it. It's a very durable finish. It's the finish that has lasted on 18th century furniture for the longest time. All the other finishes that I know of have a lifetime to them. Varnishes and lacquers go bad. French polish or shellac does not go bad as a finish. When I first started woodworking, I didn't enjoy finishing at all. Now I enjoy it as much as any part of the process. But when I first started woodworking, I kind of wished I could just find somebody else to finish the furniture for me. I just wanted to do the woodworking and never mind the finishing. And I probably spent 10 years or more, 10 or 15 years, looking for some substitute for French polish. But partly because I read how difficult French polish was. And there's some things to it that take practice. I mean, some of what I'm going to show you takes some practice. But like I say, I had seen French polishes and read about them, but in reading about them, they sounded so hard to do, and like I said, the voodoo that is written about them tends to make them sound harder than they really are. I tried everything I could to get that appearance, that wonderful appearance that you get, and nothing would work, so I finally just broke down and decided to learn French polish itself. And it didn't take that long. It didn't take that long to learn. It's just like most of the other things. It probably takes longer to learn how to do a good set of dovetails than it does to learn how to do a good French polish. If you just put aside some of the, so I'm going to show you one real cheating move in a minute that I've developed. I was fairly sparing with my pumice, so I don't have a whole lot of pumice buildup on the surface here. But sometimes you'll get some buildup, and it'll be a little more prominent in some places than others. So that you can scuff sand this now. Notice that this hasn't been 10 minutes since I put it down, and a little bit of that pumice is coming up, a little bit of that colored pumice is coming up on the sandpaper, but not much. So anyway, I've scuff sanded away any extra pumice that's lying on the surface and the swirl marks. So now we're going to put away the pumice. And again, this surface would probably not be totally grain filled when we're finished. We could do another whole coat of this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go. So I'm going to go to my other pad now, the one that I passed around. Not using the one that has the pumice mixture all in it. And I'm going to do the same, otherwise the same. I'm going to moisten it just a little bit with some alcohol. Get that distributed throughout so that it's equally distributed, not just on the surface. With just a little bit of a little bit of linseed oil. This is boiled linseed oil, by the way. Raw linseed oil really has no place in a woodworking shop. It never dries. It's not what you want to use on any of your projects. Little bit of linseed oil on the surface. Now, we're going to get some shellac here. And I'm going to get a little bit more on here than I did before. And I'm going to start this process. This is like landing and taking off an airplane. You want to swoop down on the surface and land and then swoop off the surface. You don't want to put it down and then move it across and then pick it up. You'll have little splooch marks at either end. And it takes a while to learn how to land just at the right angle and at the right so that you get the whole board. But notice that I'm going with the grain whenever possible. Now this is where in carving it's completely different. When you're working with carving, you're rubbing it in, you're rubbing every which way you can. You know, you're just trying to keep a little bit of rubbing motion, friction going. I'm not even pressing down into the deep spots now. Carving is completely different. But when you've got a nice big flat surface, you're going with the grain, and I like to go the full length of the board. So if it's a long board, I'm going like this. And you notice that I'll go, depending on how long the board is, you can cover about anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches of width with each application of shellac. Now what happens is that as you're laying it down, at first it lays on real smooth, then you start going back over the area where you went, and it wants to try to drag a bit. No, that's not the time to stop. You lessen your pressure just a little bit, and you keep rubbing back and forth until a point comes when the finish starts to skate. When the pad starts to skate on the finish, you can feel it quit dragging all of a sudden and just glide. That's when you're building up the real polish. And you notice I go back over the whole area where I've been again and again and again. Just now you've read about the figure 8 motion. That's another bit of French polish voodoo that I don't think is applicable to most situations. Wherever you've got just a big broad surface, just go the straight landing motion, landing and taking off motion, with the grain.
Alf, I noticed you started with a pad that was already been used. Do you have to prime that pad somehow when you make a new one? Or?
When I make a new one, yes, I do. I just put a little bit more shellac in it and, you know, work it up like I did with the alcohol. But you don't have to, I mean, you don't have to really get the whole pad all. It quickly becomes usable. This is a fairly new pad, actually. Now let me take this one. Just after that one application of polish, which is definitely not all you would do, but I think you're going to really be kind of amazed at what a nice finish is on this after just one application.
And Al, a
Uh-huh.
lot of us are just kind of weekend warriors.
Right?
So how long will a pad last if you're not using it all the time?
As long as you keep it like I keep it in a locked off, you know, in a closed container, and just keep it softened with a little bit of alcohol, it'll last months.
You have to make sure it's in a sealed container.
In a sealed container, yeah.
Spontaneous combustion.
No, the spontaneous combustion issue is not an issue because shellac is not a cross-linking, to get a little bit chemical about this.
Okay.
The spontaneous combustion happens in cross-linking materials. That is, materials that start out with short molecules and cross-link into very long molecules as they dry. Linseed oil is very, very bad for spontaneous combustion. But shellac is not a cross-linking substance. It's a solvent evaporation substance. And so it's not prone to spontaneous combustion at all. And there's so little linseed oil in the process that it's not an issue. Now, like I say, this is just one coat you're looking at. Normally with French polish, if you were to do it the way I'm showing you, you would put on a minimum of 7 coats. You might put on as many as 20. Now, in one day, the first 5 coats will go on. You can put 5 coats on in the first day. With each coat, you're building up a little material, and since it's a solvent action, that is, the last coat is dissolving the previous coat a little bit. As you make the total coating thicker, it takes a little longer for it to dry. So by the time you're up to coat number 12, what's going on? By the time you're up to coat number 12, you're waiting 2 or 3 hours between coats. But the first few coats can be done every 30 to 45 minutes. However, like I said, you can see just how nice one coat is. You would put a lot more material on there before you had a final coat. Now, what I'm going to show you when I get the board back is a shortcut. Which when we talked about the spiritual qualities of French polishing earlier, I'm going to show you my violation of
the shellac that's in this, is this more of a blonde or an amber, or what kind of
No,
color?
it's a medium orange.
Okay.
It's not up in the light spectrum at all. It's right in the middle of the spectrum between garnet, which is a dark reddish brown or a medium dark reddish brown, and super blonde, which is just about the lightest.
Right in the middle.
This is right in the middle of the two. It's my favorite of the. I buy. It's you might have noticed if you bought any, it's pretty expensive to buy by the pound. But If you buy it by 50 pounds, it's not very expensive per pound. It's, and I buy it by 50 pounds, which lasts me 2 or 3 years, and I generally sell some to all my local friends who use it too.
Every coat that you put on, you go through the experience of the drag and then the glaze.
Yes. Every coat that I put on, you can feel the drag. I mean, the drag doesn't happen immediately, but it happens soon after. Like I went across the finish one time, across the surface one time, and it just laid down. When I went back, it drug. Now when I come down here to the bottom where it's dried a little bit, I'm getting less drag and more escape. But I just keep working back and forth.
You didn't use any linseed oil that fast.
You're right, I did. Which and that would probably grease the skids. Okay, I'm gonna leave that. I'm accelerating everything just a little bit here for the purposes of the demo, but that was not really too early to put on a second coat. I mean, we're really starting to get some nice sheen there. We just have to.
Now, on a bigger table, a card table, Pembroke, would you go all the way across
Yes,
the table?
that's what I was saying earlier. I would, I might even walk with the pad.
So you're not doing one little area at a time. You're doing...
I would use a bigger. I would use the tennis ball size pad, right? And I would walk, and I might only get 2 strokes or 3 strokes before I had to recharge my pad. And then, but otherwise, it's just like what you're seeing me do, going back over where I've been, just. Part of the thing about areas where like 2 pieces of wood intersect one another at right angles or carving or stuff like that, the visual nature of the very construction means that your eye is not as sensitive to tiny imperfections as your eye would be with a big flat tabletop, right? So those little tiny imperfections in the finish that result from not being able to polish just as smoothly as I polished, they just go away in the, remember what I said about the eye wants stuff to be right. So something has to be really wrong before the eye will decide that it's wrong. Okay, here's the down and dirty part. Now I don't use this at home. I just put shellac in the gun. But after I've got 2 or 3 polished coats on, if I want to build up, if I want to get to the point where it looks like there's 20 coats of French polish on there, yeah.
What is that product?
This is spray shellac. Like I said, at home I would put my mixed shellac in a spray gun, but I didn't have that whole apparatus to bring here, so. Yes. I don't actually know of anybody else who makes prepared shellac besides Zinsser, but I trust Zinsser the best of all.
Is that D-wax?
Yeah, all their stuff is de-waxed. I just drooled on that.
There's a watermark. It's a drool mark.
So if you're spraying it with your gun, do you still use a 1.5 pound gun?
Yes.
And do you change the needle size or anything?
Well, I mean, I don't change the needle size because the size I'm using, it goes with, I can't tell you what size I remember. I don't remember what size nozzle works, but it's pretty much the same nozzle size as works for finned lacquer. Now, it would be, if you're spraying thick polyurethane or something like that, that's too large a nozzle size. But typical nitrocellulose lacquer or other materials in that viscosity range, the same nozzle works.
And nitrocellulose lacquer sounds dangerous.
Well, it's, relatively speaking, it's one of the least noxious of the finishes that are out there nowadays. The pre-catalyzed lacquers and those things, or the two-part lacquers, those things are really bad. Nitrocellulose lacquer has lacquer thinner in it, so you should use a respirator when you spray it. But it's it's not particularly prone to blowing up with a spark or anything like that.
Where do you get nitrocellulose lacquer?
All standard finishing. Sherwin-Williams is the best quality that I've found.
They don't carry it. They don't carry it in stock anymore. You have to order it.
Well,
They do in Indianapolis. They don't here.
my Sherwin-Williams store is populated by all young salespeople, and none of them have heard of the nitrocellulose lacquer because nobody, the cabinet shops don't use it anymore. But it's on the shelves back there. I have to take them back to their warehouse and show them what I'm looking for. When I tell them,
The stores here in Lafayette don't.
they don't. Have you gone back into the warehouse to see if they?
Yes,
Okay.
you have to
He was
order.
there when they stocked those stores.
I'm not surprised because it's considered an old-fashioned finish, and it's not sold as much nowadays. Everybody's using the conversion varnishes and the
Did you go to the
two-part
industrial store versus
the two-part catalyzed finishes. Now with that spray coat, I can't just come back and right away and put another polish coat on. But what I would do at this point in the process is spray on 2 or 3 coats like I did, waiting in between. Even those coats are going to dry. That's still a little tacky. They're going to dry fast. It's better to be in a dust-free environment, but it's not like the typical varnishes that you're accustomed to, which can pick up dust for 8 hours. This will be dust-free in another 15 or 20 minutes. I'll spray on 2 or 3 coats. Then when I'm finished spraying, I'll sand that down one time, just to get rid of whatever dust might have accumulated in there, whatever nibs are in the finish. I'll sand that down with 280 or 320 grit sandpaper. Not too vigorously, just a good scuff sanding. And then come back and polish 2 or 3 more times, just like I've been doing with the pad. And at that point, it's just perfect. There's nothing more you would want to do to a typical piece of furniture than that. You don't have to rub it out. You don't have to do anything. It's just marvelous. And aside from the place where I drooled on this, take a look at this. This with just there is a difference between the spray coats and the hand polished coats, but you don't want to touch that with your fingers. So pass it around. Polyurethane is not a solution finish. What that means is the next coat of finish does not dissolve the last coat of finish. That's why you have to scoff poly after a certain point, because you're only relying on the tooth that you created the last coat for the next coat to bind to. The next coat is not dissolving the previous coat, right? With shellac and nitrocellulose lacquer, both of those are solution are dissolving mediums. So what happens is after you scuff sand and then recoat, you're dissolving the previous coat into the next coat you put on. So whatever scratches you put down are leveled out by the dissolving process. But that doesn't happen with polyurethane. So if you get an extra scratch in a place, if you scratch it up too much in one place, it's going to continue to look dull because those scratches are going to remain between the two layers of finish that have not redissolved. That's what you're experiencing. That's another reason I like these old-fashioned finishes. The fact that each coat is serving to dissolve the previous coat a little bit creates a single film rather than a layer of distinct films. But I think that's fairly impressive. It does the sprayed-on coat looks brasher than the polished-on coat. And when you're finished spraying, you'll be tempted to say, "Man, that looks good enough for me," because it does look good. But I would still recommend that you scuff it down and then come back and polish over it a couple more times because it's going to just be that much mellower. It's just mellower. It's not as brash as it is when you spray it. Yeah.
You're just using the spray as a quick builder.
As a quick build. Just getting when you're polishing shellac, you're probably laying down a quarter to a third of a mil of polish of material at a time. A mil being 1,000th of an inch. So you're probably putting down 3 10,000ths of an inch of finish with each stroke, with each polished coat. Whereas when you spray, you're probably laying down 3/4 of a mil or a mil of finish. So you're getting a lot quicker buildup. That's why it's down and dirty. But the fact of the matter is, it being a dissolving finish, in the end, the shellac itself doesn't really care whether it's sprayed or polished. It's just how you build up the coats. I like to get my polish started. I like to get my finish started with the polish because it does establish the ground that you're working with. But then you can spray on several coats just to get your build up, and you save 2 or 3 days worth of work. Well, I think, gentlemen, I've exhausted my limited supply of knowledge to pass on to you. You've got all I've got. You've got all I've got. Thank you guys for your patience